Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Beau. Hope you guys are doing good today and ready to go. It's August 25th and we are going to be in Romans chapter 2 today. And so this is the morning devotion with me, Beau. I love to do my devotions just going through the Bible. So maybe take a little bit of time during the day to crack open the Bible, read through a book of the Bible. It's certainly the best way to understand kind of the flow of kind of what's happening in the context of the scriptures. If you just do a little devotion book, you're going to be hit and miss on, where that passage is, who's he talking to, what's the history behind it. So it's wonderful just to be able to read through the actual entire scriptures. So that's kind of what I've always done. I started doing that when I was about 17 years old. I think is when I'm in my 50s now. I'm not going to tell you my age, but I'm in my 50s. So, hey, I've been doing this a while now. And I find going to the sources is always the best. If you never have read the scriptures, then you really need to do it. You really need to get into it and just take a little time, go through the Bible. So many people like me that grow up very secular, progressive, very atheistic, and don't know anything about the Bible. A lot of us criticize the Bible, but we just never have read it. So, it's always good to just go to the source, get into it, read it. It's amazing how just reading the Bible really changed my whole outlook on life, what is true, who do I really trust? I mean, really amazing. So let's get into Romans 2, because Romans is a fascinating book. Boy, Romans 1 was off the charts if you missed that one. There's always playlists at my YouTube channel at youtube.com. Go to the search bar, type in my name, Beau, right there, that French-Canadian name, and you will get to the playlist. And yeah, you're going to see me actually reading through the Quran as well. So you might see some of that too, because I want you guys to know the sources, understand the source. If you understand the source, then you kind of know how things work, how the society works, blah, 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 all kinds of things if you just go to the source. The Bible is really unique, very special, unbelievably rich. It's beautiful that we get a chance to read this book just daily. What a privilege. So let's get into it. It says, you may think you can condemn such people, but you are just as bad. Okay, chapter 1 was a bleak chapter on just how everybody has really, gone their own way. Become very, hey, what's the word nowadays? We want autonomy. Have you ever heard that? We want autonomy. I want to be my own individual. And the big question always in a society is, do we think collectively or do we think individually? I mean, think about that. Do we really think just about the individual, me, myself, and I? Or do we think about the whole, the collective whole? And, how does that work? That kind of balance of being autonomous, but yet being part of the collective. It's interesting that we have to think about that often. Sometimes people just take it for granted that we kind of go in between both of those kind of ways of thinking. But if you really think about it, it's very interesting. But it talks about us collectively as human beings being very selfish, self-centered, filled with all kinds of issues, that really prevent us from being able to have a right relationship with a God, the deity. And so it says, you may think you can condemn such people, but you are just as bad. Ouch. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear that I'm jamming, that I'm awesome, that I'm great. All those things, positive affirmation, man. Those, and us Southern California kids, that's how we talk, right? It's like, man, let's be positive. Let's totally, be positive and, think positive. And, so this is kind of the bad news before the good news. It says, but you are just as bad. I was hanging out with a bunch of high school kids the other day, and you could tell those high school kids did not recognize just how they are just like everybody else, just as messed up as everybody else. Sometimes young people are under an illusion that they think they have it together, that they think they know what they're doing. Hey, why do college kids go out and do a bunch of activism and they don't know what they're doing? I mean, that was me growing up, right? Super progressive, atheist, that kind of thing, Marxist. And, you don't know what you're saying, though. You don't know why you're saying it. You're just regurgitating what the tribe is doing. And boy, it's like funny how a lot of times in our youth, we don't realize the basics of what this says. And that is, man, I got a problem too. And if I don't realize that I got a problem too, that I'm going to be filled with pride and arrogance, and I'm going to think I got it all together. And it says, and you have no excuse when they say they are wicked and when you say they should be punished because they're wicked, you are condemning yourself. For you who judge others do the very same things. And we know that God is in his justice will punish anyone for doing such things. You might go, man, I don't want a God who punishes. Well, then you want a God who's not really upholds any righteousness. That's what you're asking for, is a deity who is more like the devil, who doesn't care about right or wrong or justice. I mean, just think if your court system was like that, and my court system was like that, where we didn't care if it was just, if we didn't care if the court upheld righteousness. What kind of society would that be? If you just walked into court after murdering someone and you could pay the judge off kind of in the hallway before you get to the courtroom, with some money, and you're not guilty. It would be wrong. So it says God will punish anybody who does these things. He's a God of justice. And he says, since you judge others for doing these things, why do you think you can avoid God's judgment when you do the same things? Don't you see how wonderfully kind, tolerant, and patient God is with you? Does this mean nothing to you? Can't you see that his kindness is intended to turn you away from sin? Man, today, do I not see the kindness of God in my life? Do I not see that there is something in me that man just wants to fight against the work of the Holy Spirit in my life? Hopefully, we can all understand that there is something in us that wants to rebel from the deity. Our bodies are flailing, falling apart. It doesn't want to be renewed. It's gonna die. It is fighting with all of its might, so to speak, against the new renewed person that's in me. And it says, don't you see that God's been kind to us as human beings? Don't you think that any good thing, anything that we have, the breath that we breathe, it's all just a grace of God to us? What happens in a society where we forget that God has been kind to us, that we don't deserve this? What happens to a society? We become arrogant, proudful, haughty, over-opinionated, filled with hatred towards one another, thinking we are better than one another. You could see how when we get away from this, there's a lot of problems that happen. And because you are stubborn and refuse to turn from your sin, you are storing up terrible punishment for yourself. For a day of anger is coming when God's righteous judgment will be revealed. So even though Christ has died for the sins of the world, we have to realize that there also is coming a day in which the world will be judged in righteousness. In rightness, we all will be accountable. He will judge everyone according to what they have done. We will all be judged according to everything we've done is going to be held account. We are going to be held accountable to that. He will give eternal life to those who keep on doing good, seeking after the glory and honor and immortality that God offers. For those that do good, what is the good? Trusting in God. What is the good? Seeking after the glory and honor and immortality that God offers. The good is trusting in God. What is God's way of provision for my sins? How did God make a way to bring me to God? What does God say about it? Here's my son, in whom I'm well pleased. Trust in him. Okay, that's what he says. So am I going to trust in Jesus? Am I going to trust in the Messiah? That is the provision that's been offered to us human beings. Am I going to trust God, or am I going to say, no, God, I'm not going to trust your Messiah, and I'm going to make God out to be a liar, like God wasn't true in sending his son Jesus to pay the price for our sin? So it says, but he will pour out his anger and wrath on those who live for themselves, who refuse to obey the truth and instead live lives of wickedness. They just turn away. They go their own route. Wickedness is defined as a turning away from truth. It's a turning away from what is right. There will be trouble and calamity for everyone who keeps on doing what is evil, right? The evil is a distortion of the good. It's taking what is good and distorting it. And it says, for the Jew first and also for the Gentile, everybody. But there will be glory and honor and peace from God for all who do good, for the Jew first and also for the Gentile, for God does not show favoritism. Hey, we're all going to be judged according to what we've chosen, the direction we're going in. We all have a decision to make. It's just what decision you're going to make. Who are you going to trust today? Who's going to be your God today? Which way you're going to go? Who are you going to follow? What's going to move you? Is it going to be faith? Is it going to be fear? Is it going to be insecurities? Is it going to be anger? Is it going to be resentment? Is it going to be bitterness? Is it going to be, hope? What is it? And it says, and when the Gentiles sin, they will be destroyed. Even though they'd never had God's laws, written laws, meaning the Gentiles, the non-Jewish people have never had the Ten Commandments and the Torah. It says, and the Jews who do have God's law will be judged by by that law when they fail to obey it. For merely listening to the law doesn't make us right with God. It is obeying the law that makes us right in his sight. Even Gentiles who do not have God's written law show that they know his law when they have instinctively obeyed it. Right? There's this work of obedience in the heart of one who is focused on the deity. Even without having heard it, even though they don't know it. I didn't grow up knowing it. A lot of people don't grow up knowing the law, but yet they're looking to God. They're wanting to trust in God, in what God has provided for them to help them. They demonstrate that God's law is written in their hearts, for their own conscience and thoughts either accuse them or tell them that they are doing right. Right? Our own thoughts. That's wrong, Beau. You shouldn't be doing that. It's funny. I didn't need the Ten Commandments to tell me that certain behaviors were wrong. There was something working in me as a Southern California young man that was just working in my heart and in my mind, saying, Beau, what you're doing is wrong. It's not right. You're hurting people. You're hurting yourself. And this message, and this is the message I proclaim, that a day is coming when God, through Christ Jesus, will judge everyone's secret life. Everybody's secret life. Man, God's going to look at all of us, all of our secret lives, everything, and it'll all be examined. Whew, that is scary, right? For a lot of us, that's super scary. But Paul's going to get to the place where it's really the safest thing to do, just to come to God. That there is safety in coming honestly with God. God, help me with my greed. Help me with my lustful inclinations, the things I want to look at, the things I do look at, the things I hear, the things that I do out in the day. Coming honestly with God, saying, God, forgive me, cleanse me of that inner work, right? Coming honestly with God, there's safety there, and he'll get there. He'll get there. But he's bringing us to the place of where we're going, whoa. Doesn't matter if you have the Torah, first 5 books of the Bible. It doesn't matter if you don't have the Torah. That what matters is you looking to the deity, trusting in God whether it's through looking up to the heavens and going, God, you created everything, or by looking within and going, God, you created me. I know that there's a creator. And Lord, I could tell. I know that you are telling me what is right and wrong through my conscience. You've given me a mind, and that mind convicts me of when I do wrong. Man, all this stuff's going on. It's really cool, right? The work of God is not just through the being able to read the Bible, but it's through other things too, even nature, even the conscience that we have as human beings made in the image of God. There is a God conscience that we have in our mind. That's why human beings, by the way, can't stop worshiping something. We worship no matter what. It doesn't matter what you're reading. We tend to bow to something. We value something so highly that we follow it to the end. And says, you who call yourself a Jew are relying on God's law, and you boast about something or your special relationship with him. The Jews tend to boast in that. Oh, we're so good. Oh man, we're so righteous. Check out how awesome we are. Look at what we have. The temple, we have Jerusalem, we have this, we have that, we have Jericho, we have, you know what I mean? We have the Jordan, that kind of thing. And it says, you know what he wants. You know what is right because you have been taught by his law. You are convinced that you are a guide to the blind and a light for people who are lost in darkness. You think you can instruct the ignorant and teach children the ways of God, for you are certain that God's laws give you complete knowledge and truth. Well then, if you teach others, why don't you teach yourself? You tell others not to steal, but you do steal. See, you become boastful in your religion. You think that because you have the written scriptures that you got it all, that you have the true knowledge. Everybody else is, gone. But you don't see a problem, and that is you yourself can't seem to do what you're affirming. This is the big problem with Islam, right? If you want to obey Sharia law in Islam, go for it. But guess what? You'll never be able to do it right. You're always going to find failure. You're always going to biff it. You're always going to miss. And then what? Now, how are you going to deal with your mishaps, your sins before the deity, right? A law-based system, man, can only go so far. And then you hit a dead end and realize, oh my gosh, I've broken already 20 laws, 50 laws, 100 laws, 200 laws. When is how many laws broken gonna now send me to hell? Is it gonna be the 201st breaking of the law? Is it gonna be the 1000th, breaking of the law that's gonna send me to hell? That's the problem with serving the law. It's like at some point, the deity's going to go, that's it. You just blew it. You just did it. You just messed up. And now you're down. So what you have to do in those religious law systems is instead of having to face the inevitable issue of your failure to keep your own law, because you are going to go to hell now, you become prideful and you think that you actually keep it. And you puff yourself up and you tell your kids that you are so great, and you tell at your religion, and you tell people that, oh yeah, you're a religious person, oh yeah, no boy, you keep it. And that's how you are able to get by, is by lying to yourself, thinking that you really are all that good. And that's what it's talking about the Jewish nation. You say it is wrong to commit adultery, but do you commit adultery? Yes. You condemn idolatry, but do you use items stolen from pagan temples? Yes. You are so proud of knowing the law, but you dishonor God by breaking it. Yes. No wonder the scriptures say the Gentiles blaspheme the name of God because of you. Ooh, man, that's heavy, right? The Gentiles blaspheme. Man, Isaiah 52 verse 5, he quotes, right? That's the Bible Paul had. Man, hey, the name of God is blasphemed because of the Israel's horrible example, being puffed up, filled with pride, so filled with pride that when the incarnation, the Messiah, comes on the scene, which was spoken about, they hate him. They don't want to deal with that notion that potentially they've broken enough laws to send them to the wrong place, right? To go to the wrong place. To be separated from God. Ugh, we don't like that. So we try to cover it up with our own prideful, arrogant inclinations and actions. It says the Jewish ceremony of circumcision has value only if you obey God's law, but if you don't obey God's law, you are no better off than the uncircumcised Gentile. Man, if you're not going to believe it, then you're no better than, just what everybody else is doing out in Hollywood or out in wherever, or, whatever you're doing. If you don't believe it and you're not following it and you're not, with your heart into it, then, man, how are you any better? And it says, and if the Gentiles obey God's law, won't God declare them to be his own people? In fact, uncircumcised Gentiles who keep God's law will condemn you Jews who are circumcised and possess God's law but don't obey it. Oh, man, Paul sounds a little bit like Isaiah right now. He sounds a little bit like Jeremiah, right? Hey, you Jews, don't get so cocky. I mean, if Gentiles trust me and obey me, don't you think that's what I'm looking for? Or do you think just because I've given you all these beautiful, beautiful revelations that you got the heritage, so you're in? You're one of the the Burgesses, the aristocratic people, that kind of thing. And so you're ahead of everybody else. No, if you don't obey, you're just like everybody who doesn't obey. And those who obey are like those who obey. Right? Those Jews who do obey. And it says, for you are not a true Jew just because you were born of Jewish parents or because you have gone through the ceremony of circumcision. No, a true Jew is one whose heart is right with God. A true circumcision is not merely obeying the letter of the law. Rather, it is a change of heart produced by the Spirit. And a person with a changed heart seeks praise from God, not from people. So I see some cool things here. I mean, there's a lot to study, a lot to get into. Sometimes people use this passage and they kind of misappropriate it to think that the Jews aren't really Jews as a nation, because only a true Jew is one that is trusting in the Messiah, that kind of idea. I think that's a kind of a not a nuanced position, that you really have to look at the entire scriptures, the biblical revelation, to understand that no, Israel is Israel, and Israel does have a land, and Jerusalem is really Jerusalem, and the temple is really the temple. And it's not that all that goes away and there's just this spiritualizing of Jews. But here's the idea, as Paul's saying that, man, no, really, the whole idea here is one of obedience to God. And that if you so much boast that you're a true Jew is one that's really obeying God. That's really the point, that God is really interested in obedience and trusting Him, relying on Him. Am I one that is not just someone who's on the outward, not just someone who says it, is on the outward this, because I wear a cool, religious robe, or, I wear the clothes that people go, oh, that's the Christian, he looks like the Christian. Oh, he's the outward, manifestation of the follower of God, but am I really one inward? Is there an inward heart for Jesus? Is there an inward heart for God? And man, that I hope hits you and hits me, where we go, man, God, I want to be that person who has that humility to know that, man, I am the lost one, and that you've come to rescue me. And Lord, you've given me a heart to want to know you, not just say that I know you, not just be so stoked that I have this great heritage, but that I truly do. Now, I got to tell you, this passage, this whole chapter can hit people in different ways. And what I mean by that is this. Some people come from large families and very kind of there's a lot of heritage. And with that comes a lot of kind of just family pride. And you could see that Paul really is honing in on that idea with the Jewish nation. But then there's, and that can be difficult for you if you're from that kind of big background, that family background that has a lot of family pride in there. Your heritage, your ancestry, your grandma, your grandpa, your great-grandma, Then there's people like me who don't have much family. Like, as far as when I was growing up, I just did not have a big family at all. It was a very small unit. My parents moved away from their parents, and on one side, my grandparents died very young. So, I just never met them and never met a whole entire side of the family. And then the other side, I would just see every now and then. But I was in, North Hollywood, and they were in the farthest place across the country in the land of Maine. And so, and my parents divorced when I was 10. So I had a parent and a brother. And that was kind of my nucleus. And then when my mom remarried, I had, a stepsister and, things like that. But she didn't live with us. And so that was hit and miss too. And so it's a very fragmented world. So you don't feel attached to anything. There is no heritage. You feel kind of just alone in the world a lot. Like it's just you and your friends kind of thing. And this passage can hit us very joyfully to know that God receives us and we have no background. We have no ancestry. We have no heritage to hold on to because we don't have it. And so God receives us as we trust in him, though we are nobodies and come from nothing. And so it can hit people different ways. And you can see that that's what he's doing, is helping people understand that obedience is what God's really interested in. It doesn't matter if you have the ancestry of all the Jews and the heritage and the scriptures, or you have nothing and you don't have any of that, but you're listening to your conscience and you're seeing the creation and you're observing nature and you're going, there's got to be a creator. And man, I know that there's a God to serve, that kind of heart. So anyway, I hope that makes some cool sense to you guys. It's very, very cool chapter and how it can kind of hit people in different ways. So a good one to study. We'll get more clarity on the idea of what Paul means when he says Jews. He'll use it in a different way coming up in the book. But here he's talking about really the issue of obedience, right? So, yeah. Anyway, we'll talk to you guys later. Romans chapter 2 in the books. Take care. Have a great day, man. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for all the comments. Craig, glad you're with us. Jonathan, glad you're with us too, man. It's always good having you. Michael, awesome. Let's see, I saw other people too. Mary's in Texas. I bet you it's hot in Texas. I heard it was raining a lot too in Houston and stuff like that. So Mike, Laura, Patty, you guys all take care, okay? See you tomorrow, Romans 3. Bye-bye.